So this is probably like a controversial topic, and I don't know how this type of thing got controversial. And I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be controversial. I'm just trying to talk about something that was on my mind. So I was talking to my daughter the other day, and like really ever since she went through puberty, and like I seen it like it. That's when it clicked that men and women are different, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, it clicked way before that, from like obviously, right? Like I'm a man, so like as a boy, I noticed that men and women are different. Um, Women have a womb, and like I just heard this woman on Pearl. I forget her name. Her name's Pearl. She has this podcast, but I just seen this woman talk about how like a woman has a womb, and I mean it makes sense. Womb, man, woman, like it makes sense. But there's a weird controversial thing when you say that because it people who are transgender take offense to that. Now, even if you were never thinking about transgender, even if that never crossed your mind whatsoever, even if you were just simply like, because I'm just simply talking about, I'm a father, I'm a man that raised a daughter, so and now that she's 12, right, she's not fully grown, so like, but I've even now, after she's gone through puberty, I can see that um, there's a huge difference in puberty for a boy and a girl, a huge difference. Girls, it's like, girls actually, there's a huge difference in molecules. Like, you know how like we're a molecule species, like our brain fluctuates molecules all day. But girls, their molecules are actually different, than the way it fluctuates is different than the way a boys' molecules fluctuate. They have more, obviously we have more testosterone, we have, and they have more estrogen, and there's this thing, but we both have testosterone and estrogen, but it's the fluctuation of it. Like, how much do we fluctuate at a moment? Like, it's different because the brains are different. And that's another thing I've realized. Men and women are not. So, like, you know how, like, we were talking about, I was talking to my daughter the other day, and, we was talking about how, like, well, girls think men are stupid. Like, women think men are stupid, and men think women are stupid, but really, nobody is stupid. We just are different. And being different means that you're going to look at situations differently, which means you might think that, like, you're gonna have misunderstandings because the differences causes people to look at it differently. Like, because you know how, like, they say, like, women think more emotionally and men think more logically. And even if you tell women that, they might get it depends on the way you say it, they might feel a certain way about how you said it. But if you say that to a man, he's not going to feel a certain way about the information. He's just going to take in the information. That's kind of what they mean. Is it's like, if you take majority of men in a conversation and a majority of women in a conversation, a majority of men will say, fuck their feelings. My feelings don't fucking matter in this conversation. Not that my feelings don't matter in general, that the feelings don't matter in that conversation. It doesn't, no, this is a majority thing, what I'm saying, because there is some men that will get butthurt if they're wrong. There is some men that, like, if you tell them that they're wrong, and you show information of why they're wrong, that their emotions will get the best of them. But as a society, as a whole thing, if you get a majority of men, they would say that that man needs to work on being a better man and being able to learn how to control his emotions, because that's part of being a man. Not necessarily, it's deeper than just controlling your emotions. It's learning how to Well, if you don't like that, it doesn't matter. Take a assessment of the information, take it in, and then figure it out from there. Like, that's what they mean by logically, and how women tend to get emotional because it's how you say it. Like, you could say this, like, this information, maybe it's the same thing, um, but the way you say it matters to how the women take in the information. A lot of times, the way you say things to a man, it's just information, like, because a lot of women will say, like, men are more like, they talk more aggressive, and men would say women talk really soft, uh, but yet we're just being ourselves type shit, right? So, like, if a man is being a little aggressive with the way he's saying things, maybe getting a little hype and shit, whatever the fuck, we don't take the information much differently unless you're a man who's not really around much men. Because the modern man is different than men back in the day, right? But, like, if you have had at least enough conversations with a group of men, then you know how to conversate with a group of men, right? But, like, same thing. Well, if you've been with a group of women, and if you know how to conversate with a group of women, you know how to conversate with a group of women. But we can all agree that it's different. That if you want to conversate with a group of women, it's gonna be different than if you want to conversate with a group of men. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the way God intended it to be. God literally made two versions of the human being. This is why we are a yin and yang universe. An up and down, left and right. Like, we complement each other. We balance each other. The women are naturally better with, like, just nurturing and caring. It just comes to them naturally. Men have to be taught that. It's not that men can't be nurturing and caring. You can be stay-at-home dads and be better at being a nurturing person than the mother sometimes. But that has to be taught to the man. It's not something that comes natural. So, there's differences. There's things that come natural to men that do not come natural to women. With the whole modern feminist movement, there's only a few things it's not that I disagree, it's that I just want to kind of put out this perspective. That I think women have had equal rights since the first time they actually fought for their rights. Like, I don't know when it was, 1960s, 70s, 80s, I don't know. But, like, late 1900s, the women got basically the right to vote and the right to do the same things that men do. But nowadays, women are still, in a sense, trying to fight for equality, when really what I think the issue is now is a matter of ego. How the modern feminists today, as they're fighting for equality, what they're really fighting for now is to have a head advantage over men in the fields that men do. Like, because there is no, like, wage gap, there is no, if you go to McDonald's, you're man or woman, you're getting the same pay, right? You're starting off at the same pay. I heard the other day one of the biggest reasons for the wage gap with men and women is that women are not as, it's not, I don't want to use the word aggression, but it goes back to men and women are different. So it's not that there's a money gap, a wage gap with money, with men and women. It's that men have the balls to ask their boss for raises more often than women do. That's the only thing. The women who make less than the men that they work with, all they have to do is go to their boss and demand a raise. And they have to do it in a way where the person agrees to get the raise. Men usually know how to do that, and they do that more often than women. Because, like, people used to say that there was a wage gap between black and white people, right? But when I was working at this pizza place, I worked there for 4 years, right? I understood what the problem is with the wage gap back then with black and white people. It's a very similar thing with the wage gap with women and men. Majority of black people won't ask their boss for a raise. It's a thing where it's like you don't. A lot of white men will feel more comfortable to go to their boss and say, "Give me a raise," instead of saying, and can I please have a raise? Like, there's a difference between, give me a raise, man. Like, come on. It's not that big of a deal. Like, because that was me. When I worked at this pizza place, I went to my manager so many times to get a raise. And there's a lot of times where, because you have no idea how many times I've asked. When I started working there, minimum wage was $8, okay? And for that first 2 years, minimum wage only rose to like $9 type shit or whatever. But I was making over $10 an hour. Almost, no, I think I was making like 11, by the end of it, I was making like 11 something an hour. Which now, like $15 an hour is like kind of the minimum wage or whatever. But I only got that because I kept asking for raises. And one of the people that's been working there forever was only making $9 an hour. But that's because they never asked for a raise. And you have no idea how many times I asked. To the point where I don't know, but I also became friends with the owner. He was my first business mentor. Not the manager, the owner of the store. He owned a bunch of businesses, and I learned a lot from him. And he's the one that helped me like launch my first website and started my first business. And he owns this tax firm and helped me with the taxes. And like he was really was really dope. But it was my ability to ask him, to talk to him, to learn from him, to first ask the manager for the raise, to then get the raise. Then I would keep asking. I remember like I got a raise. 2 months later, I asked for another raise. And they're like, "We just gave you a raise." I'm like, "I know, I want another one." They're like, "No, like, just do some more work and we'll see." And then like 6 months later, or like probably less than that, I asked again and I got the raise. So like, it's not that men and women. It's not that men are better than women. It's not that women are. It's that women are different, so they do things differently. Men, the reason why we're able to kind of just go through things is because men have, for thousands of years, kind of been dominating not women, but we've been kind of not necessarily used by the women, but like the women back in the day needed the men to fight the wars, to conquer the lands, to take over, like, and this is kind of just part of our nature, but like there's nothing wrong with that. Just like there's nothing wrong with a woman wanting to be feminine, right? Because there's a problem where like men, because we're men, we think differently, we have different perspectives, we have a different idea of what life is and what we should do or how we should present ourselves in the world or whatever. So when we see women showing skin, when we see like all these whatever, a lot of men be like, "Oh, she's just searching for attention," or "Oh, she's just whatever," misunderstanding that they don't understand the woman, they just don't understand what it means to be a woman. And like, that's because men and women are different. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Of course, I don't think we fully, as men, we fully don't understand. So like, it's very complex for like, okay, it's very risky for a woman to give a man advice and for a man to give a woman advice. It's not that the advice might work, but it would work better for someone who looks like you. So advice from a brown-skinned man might work better for a brown-skinned man. And for some reason the world don't want to look at this, and like it's almost like all this shit is so controversial to really look at the fact that a white boy is different than a black boy, a girl is different than a boy, like a mixed boy is different than a fully black boy, like, because I'm mixed, and that did different things to my mind growing up. Like, I was really confused on who am I? Am I black or am I white? Like, but a fully black person didn't have that thought. But yet, we both got looked at like we were black. Like, it's one of those things. But a white boy never experienced any of that, right? They have their own things that we don't understand, right? Because a lot of black people think that, well, because we've had it so rough and things are like stacked against us, that like white boys just have it easy type shit, when it's not that simple. They have their own problems that also we wouldn't understand. Just like women have their own problems that we wouldn't understand. Like, raising a daughter has literally showed me that men and women are different because women have their period and men do not. The reason why women have a period is because women have ovaries and men do not. And the reason, like, women have a womb and a whole thing where they can grow a baby and men do not. But that whole thing causes a different, like, fluctuation of molecules that men don't have, just like the testes, the balls, causes a different reaction of molecules that women do not have. Like, this is just the differences in men and women. The literal physical differences in men and women causes the mental differences in men and women. And it's not just the balls and the vagina they're not just sexual organs, they're also things that produce molecules that fluctuate through your bloodstream that literally create are part of your personality. Part of the personality of women, like all women have different personalities, but all women are like women. And all men have different personalities, but all men are like men. And there's many different types of men, there's many different types of women, but men think like men and women think like women. There is a difference. And we can't fully measure this difference yet because we are going back to the fucking cave ages, like the stone ages, where we're sitting here saying, men and women are not different, which maybe maybe there's some women that say men and women are not different because they're looking at it emotionally, because we're not looking at it emotionally. Like, the men aren't looking at it emotionally. Like, if women were better at everything in the world than men, we wouldn't be like, oh, it is what it is type shit. You just gotta accept what is. And what is there's differences. And if we don't acknowledge those differences, reality will go into chaos. Like, literally. Like, we don't understand. Like, this should be common sense. And it really is. I guarantee it's common sense to the men who raised daughters, it's common sense. And to the mothers who raised sons, it's common sense. Because they've seen the differences as their children grew up, and the differences from their childhood and their child's childhood, and like, there's a huge difference between just what it is to be a girl and what it is to be a boy. And that's the point. That's the point. Because God wanted to experience both, man and woman, not just one thing. Like, if God wanted one thing, there would be no man and woman. There would be a human being that is asexual, that can have its own baby, but that's not how God made it. So that's just not how it is.